Welcome, everybody. It's the time again. Once a month, we get together and we talk about the Inspired Business TV. This is a community of us who are all what we call the iTribers. We get together and we talk specifically around items that are going to change the world within our own worlds. Does that make sense? And we haven't got. I'd like to introduce my co-host as well, Sandosa.
My business coach and a mentor, and right now I'm doing a very interesting area of visibility of people's businesses. So get in touch with me. But today it's not about me. Today we have a phenomenal and an important person in our show is Ninder Johal, which I think Suki is going to elaborate more about this amazing person.
Oh, I sure am. Yes, I am. So welcome again, everybody. So today we have another treat, another gentleman who has not just achieved, I think basically changed a lot of the industries that he's worked in. He's been what we call a pioneer in many different ways. He's come from a corporate understanding background, but he's moved into helping in every element from social environments to academic environments. So without taking too much time, I'm going to introduce our amazing guest today. It's Ninder Johal, the Smiler of the Year. Ninder, welcome.
Good afternoon from the Midlands, and in particular, the Black Country in Birmingham.
Yes. Now, when Ninder talks about the Black Country, he specifically is what I call one of the best advocates I've ever seen of buying locally, connecting with all the local businesses and promoting them. You know, when we start to talk a little bit about Ninder's journey, which will shortly start, he's changed a whole chamber's thinking. He turned it around completely, become the chairman for many, many years. So before I cut into that a little bit more, Ninder, I mean, welcome to our Inspired Business TV broadcast this month. And what I'd like to ask you a question, if you don't mind, can you possibly just share with us, because we've had the good fortune of connecting on many occasions, and I see you as an older brother as well, and a very good friend. And so my question to yourself is that, for all the audiences listening, which they're all in the mindset of starting, people who are growing and people getting themselves clearer. There's more people joining us today. It's really lovely. Now, the question I ask yourself is that you are an individual who had the most amazing academic career, and you've continued that as well. But then you took like a change in life. So can you please enlighten us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, okay. So I followed the traditional approach, which is that obviously most of us all just went to university. So I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. So I looked around and thought, well, which occupations or professions? Security. So if you think about Maslow's theory that we all like to be secure, we need a safe, certain environment. So I picked up all things accountancy. So I went and did a accountancy finance degree.
That's a pretty tough one itself, isn't it?
Yeah. And then, of course, I had this. This is going to sound really strange because I've got a T-shirt on, but one of the reasons I went for that type of secure job was I like the idea as a kid of people who wore suits. So I thought, well, what professions? Yeah. So I thought, I like people wearing suits. So what professions are safe, secure, and allows you to wear a suit? And I hate wearing suits now, but an accountant was one. So it's interesting how, as a child, your perception of the world determines what you do in the future. So that was my sort of ambition, was to become an accountant. The only problem was that once I graduated, and 16 interviews later, the accountancy profession told me where to go. Clearly, they clearly thought I wasn't employable. So that took me to the year of the graduation, took me to about September, in which the panic started. And I thought, well, hold on, I can't seem to land a job here. So what do I do next? And of course, it was beginning to become a fashionable word called an MBA, which is a Master's in Business Administration. So still in its embryonic stage, most people hadn't heard of it. So the first thing I thought, well, okay, look, I'm in Birmingham, what's the nearest university? Check the logic and the rationale, none. So I thought, well, I've got to find the nearest university to me, which was Aston. Let's go into Aston and see what they do at master's level. And then I came across the word MBA, and I thought, okay, 1 year course. Let's do an MBA. So in many respects, people say to you, you're going to be focused. And I'm showing you everything that was unfocused, if that makes sense. Because whilst approach initially was very focused. I wanted to become an accountant. When that didn't work, it's interesting that I then quickly just shifted. So sometimes in one's career, you have to be really flexible and you have to be ready to change very quickly if what you set out to do doesn't become reality. And sometimes too many people
That's such a key point there. Sorry to cut you, interject there, but for the audience listening, it's so important the way Ninder's just shared. That actually, the moment you sometimes take a journey, you start a journey. It doesn't have to be the way you originally planned it, and you're adapting and moving forward with it. But Ninder Johal is actually the evidence of the success that one can achieve, even though you've taken a different route to start off with and taken a bit of a wide. So please continue. Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes people become too fixated with a particular route and stay there and say, well, no, I don't care what everything around me is telling me, I'm sticking with this route. So there are dangers to that. And I think you need to be able to flex and move, even if it's not what you thought you were initially going to do. So the MBA came along, and thankfully, because of the MBA, I was able to land quite a good consultancy role, which took me all around the country. So I was going to various clients' plants, looking at their cash flows, looking at the balance sheet, forensically working out where they were. But what was interesting, whilst I was doing that, I had a love for music. So
this is how we all know you.
Yeah, so during that year, the lead singer VJ and I, we were playing with another band. We set up our own band and we called it Achanak. So suddenly we had a great record, Lakun, which was really doing the business. So I was a management consultant by day, and a musician by night.
And a full-on musician. When I'm talking about the musician, if the audience doesn't know, but the group was called Achanak. Now, the team Achanak, through the late 80s and through the 90s, let me tell you, they dominated and reinvented the Bhangra industry. So I'm sure Ninder's sitting there. Everybody trusts the way I'm sharing this conversation. Ninder's going to be a bit more humble than I am, but I'm telling you, it reinvented how the audio systems worked, how sound was delivered in a live event, how recordings were done, how videos were made and created. The quality was just stepped up. And what was really intrinsic with this was an air of clarity and style that always came up with the NR, the natural, whatever it is, brand name. So, and that's synonymous to yourself there, Ninder, because I think you were not just a member of the group; you were actually the manager. You actually drove that whole heart, didn't you?
Yeah. So I think what was interesting about that. So remember, I've just been armed with an MBA, so I had all this information in my brain. And what you always do when you enter a marketplace is you first scan the environment, you check what's happening in that marketplace. Then you ask yourself, is there something that we can or I can do differently to what is currently happening in the marketplace? So it's always three letters. Why would anybody buy what you have? And for them to buy, then you need to have something that is radically or different from the current offering. So what we did with the Achanak was we looked at the marketplace, we saw some fantastic bands, and we then deliberately sought to make ourselves different from those operating in that sector. And I did the same rationale with the label. So the same rationale to the label. And I know it's a word that's used perhaps too loosely, but we really did want to disrupt the sector you operate in. And if you can disrupt it, and it doesn't have to be technological disruption, it could be any kind of disruption that makes you then different to others in the marketplace offering. And if you start from that place, then you're on to something. And I think we did that very well with the band, and I did that very well with the label.
So I kind of agree with you there. The disruption element is a little bit overused these days, but the reality is you have to come in with something different, and something that really rattles the cage is not the norm. You're spot on there. So if anybody's thinking about their own industry, of how they can possibly do something similar, I mean, this is the time to probably reach out to us and speak to us as well. But the key here is you have to change the status quo, I suppose, in some context. Is that right?
Yeah, and not only that, and I think that disruptive view assumes that there's an element of risk. So if you're not a risk taker, and if you're not thinking about taking risks, then you're going to be the same as everybody else. If you're the same as everybody else, then you're going to be largely pretty safe. And safe normally equals blandness. So then don't be surprised if further down the journey you haven't had the impact you thought. Because actually you haven't taken the risk to disrupt. So I think anybody going into business or into any kind of career, I think you have to take a risk. The risk I took was I abandoned my coveted career in finance and accounting and realised that I had to move. And with the band, the risk we took was that we didn't focus on the music as much as all the other elements that surround music. So that was the risk we took. And with the label, the risk I took was I took on unsigned acts, new acts that hadn't done anything. So that was the risk I took. And with the awards nights, which we'll speak later, I took certain other risks. So I think it is about risk management. You can't just take risks for the sake of it. You have to manage those risks, understand the downs and ups of those risks, and seek to be different. And if you seek to be different and you take a risk, I think it's going to work.
I think you are right about that one, because sometimes we are taking without thinking about it, and sometimes we make a calculated risk. And these are the key area. What you are saying is everybody has to think about taking a bit of a risk in their career, in their life, in their business, but have to be mindful of what sort of a risk going to bring in. There are always a consequence of a risk, and one has to remember that that is in your hand. You can be stagnated in your job or your business, whatever you are running, and you don't take a risk. But if you become more vibrant and more open to opportunity, then you should be able to calculate that risk and impact upon it.
I think one of the things that stood me in good stead as a record company was that every artist we signed was a risk. And also, every product we released meant that we had to keep following fashions and changes. So I think the things that Saki spoke about earlier on was the need to have as part of your DNA adaptability and to be able to change very quickly and to accept part of your DNA. So we hear the words institutionalized. So these are people who do the same thing every day for the rest of their life, and they become part of an institution, and they become institutionalized. To get them then to change their mindset is very, very difficult. But if you are used to change, even if it's small change, on a daily, monthly, regular basis, then your ability to take risks will be much more enhanced because it's actually part of your DNA. So I think people should stand back, sit back and look at what they're doing on a daily basis and ask themselves, am I radically thinking about where I'm going on a daily basis? Have an aim in mind, but always inspect yourself as often as you can to check you're on track and that you accept change. Because what most people do is they become blinkered. The blinkers come on, and then 10, 20 years later, they suddenly realise they're there, same place they were 20 years ago, because they've never stepped outside of those blinkers and looked in.
Very
so
true.
Powerful.
Very true. This blinkers, when we talk about tunnel vision, and we have blinkers, we are not keeping an open mind to receive as well in abundance, because we are just focused, or not focused, unfocused, I will say.
I think part of the problem might be also is I say to people, surround yourself with people that look nothing like you.
Yes.
Because if they look like you and think like you, they're going to be as institutionalized as you.
Yeah.
So if you surround yourself with people who look nothing like you, people therefore are more likely to challenge you because they don't know what you do, I think you become a better person. So what we tend to do as human beings is we surround ourselves with people that look like us. That's what we prefer. We like to surround ourselves with people who think like us. That's where you get the class structure, the caste structure, all of these things. And what you really should be doing is surrounding yourself with people outside of your industry, people who don't look like you, and people who think differently to you. So you question them, they question you, and that's where the institutionalization much more reduced, and you're open to benchmarking by hearing from people from outside. And a lot of people do the same thing, typically finish work with the same people they've worked for years, go with the same people possibly to the pub, have a few drinks, go with the same people to the same restaurant, and they'll repeat that. They'll do the same things over the weekend, meet the same friends, and then 20 years later, they've all grown old together and thought, crikey, actually, we haven't moved on. So I think it's look around you, look who you talk to and who you learn from. And I think your journey should always be, and I know Suk is an advocate of this.
Yes, definitely.
Lifelong learning. You should learn every day from everything you see, read, and hear.
You know, this is such a powerful point. Now, before we move on, Sam's got another kind of question to yourself. Just there's something specific that I really love that you constantly share. Can everybody hear me and see me properly? Okay, it seems to be a bit of a delay there.
We have a audio is not clear. I just got a message from one of the viewer saying is the video the voice is not very clear. So we can do a video audio test right now. People who are watching us, please kindly give us a note whether you still hear us clearly. This is Sam Dosa. And my co-host Suki Waiwala with our guest Ninder Johal. If you are listening to us, please. Yeah.
Ninder, can you please, if you can, just tune the phone itself? I think just wondering whether the microphone's working clearly on that one. Because I can hear you, but it is sound a bit echoey, but it doesn't matter. But there's a question before we move on to anywhere else. Ninder, can you say something just quickly, just so I can hear you?
Hello, 1 2 1 2. Good afternoon.
That's clear at my end. Is it better at your end?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is.
So just a question before we move on. There's one of your famous sayings, and I've got to say, it is so funny, but it's so apt. And it's about the knowing one. Remember? I know what I don't know. And you've got to give it to us. Come on. Got to put a smile on our face.
Okay. Well, look. We exist in 3 environments. There are things that we know that we know. There are things that we know that we don't know, and there are things that we don't know that we don't know. So I'll give you some examples. Yeah. What I know that I do know is that I'm speaking to you two. So I know that. I know I'm speaking to you two. What I know that I don't know is what people's reactions will be to this interview. So I know, but I don't know what they'll think. What I don't know is something that I don't know. So an example might be currently we have the EU and the government fighting over what to do with Brexit. What we don't know, and we know we don't know, is what they're thinking. So sometimes people blissfully walk around not knowing what they don't know. And I think what we need to do, as much as we can, is convert that don't know into we know, we don't know, but we know and we know. I hope that was clarity.
Did everybody get that? Was it? Did you get that, or do you not know what he was talking about?
So, are we any clearer about what we don't know? What we don't know?
Are we is the question.
Yeah.
Oh, how beautiful! I've heard this every single time, and I've heard you so many times share this on live stage as well. And when you start the conversation, people kind of catch on with the conversation, and about a third of them they're going, I think I've got one. I don't know what he's talking about now. But then they catch it right at the end. They go, "Oh my god, that was so good."
So moving forward, and can you do your camera a little bit focus, because we can see only half of your face on the camera on the broadcast at the moment.
Is that better?
No, can you do a little bit further? Yeah, that's much better. Yeah, much better. Yeah, you get the hello from your light as well as a good insight.
That's
yeah,
perfect.
That's perfect. Thank you. So going forward with the next question, what are your views on understanding others, whether personally or whether professionally? What are your views on that?
Okay, so there's a couple of things. If anybody who's in business will know that if they're going to sell a product, they're only going to sell that product if they understand the consumer buying behavior. So in other words, whatever they're selling, they need to imagine the person buying that product, the decision-making process they go through. And I think that's the same when we deal with people. So when we deal with people, if we're about to make a decision, we need to preempt in our minds what the thought process might be of the person sitting on the other side. And I think that's typically what you would do in any negotiation, whether you're negotiating at home with your wife, or whether you're negotiating at home with your kids, whether you're negotiating a business deal, or whether you're negotiating with a friend about which game of football to watch. So I think business is all about people. We decide things because of people. You can use as much technology as you want, but whatever the technology is behind it will still be people. And the most successful business people are the ones who understand people. And if you understand people, then you're on your way in terms of whatever product you're selling. So example, if I take it from an awards night, I always have to think, what's the journey of the person the moment they walk through that door into the venue? What's the steps they'll take from 6:30 till 12:30? Do I understand their customer journey? And what am I doing in that evening to make that customer journey easier for them? So really it's to try and convert I'm going to come back to it, knowing what you know and making sure that you convert as much as what you don't know into something you do know. And so you have to demystify as much as you can about what you do to make your life and the life of those who interact with you much easier.
So just a question there. So I'm not going to go down the knowing bit again because this is quite funny actually, but we love it. So the question I've got to yourself there, Ninder, because a lot of the listeners here are actually probably getting themselves in a state of they want to be positive, they want to get themselves into a business environment, they want to ensure that they've got themselves a business idea that works and functions. So the thought that I've got in my mind is, if somebody was trying to start their business and they're looking at human psychology, what Sam was just talking about with reference to how they understand other people, and then what you mentioned there was the beautiful part of them actually understanding that there's a journey that needs to be met. So, for example, what the client journey is, as they arrive and actually start with you as a business interaction, all the way through to actually spending money with you. But the most important part was post that as well, which is what I heard you say. It's about how they're going to end the journey as well at the end of the day. So if they were starting the business, for example, whether it's a retail store or whether they're going to become a speaker like yourself and myself and Sam, or whether they're introducing themselves as a service, which is an online business like Amazon, etc. If they map out, the quick question I'm asking you is, if they map out the client journey, how often, in your opinion, does it actually go? And this is a hard question to answer, I know, but I apologize in advance. But this is what the I Tribe wants. We want the reality of life. And that's why we bring coveted people like yourself, Ninder, on the show for this particular reason. What specifically do you do when it doesn't go in accordance with what you had planned? Does that make sense? So sometimes it veers off and you're thinking, oops, that wasn't how I planned it. You know, I've visualized how I wanted to do it, but the customers reacted in different ways. So what adaptations do you use, or do you change, or do you not change, or do you stick to your own way? I mean, what advice do you have in this method?
A couple of things. As with general life, there are things that you can control and there are things you can't control. And it's knowing that distinction. I think it's very rare for a business to go exactly where you thought it was going to go. I think that's quite rare. I think there's always a level of adaptation. It's also your ability to accept things that you thought were going to happen, but happen differently. What's very key, and most entrepreneurs will tell you, is they acknowledge the mistake or the difference of what they thought. They then dismiss it in the sense that it doesn't then play on their minds for the next God knows how many months. They move, they very quickly put that change in place and then motor ahead. So I think one of the things you must not do is retain negative thoughts. A lot of people do. A lot of people, it brings them down. My wife is amazed by how quickly, when something goes wrong, it's a bit like missing a penalty, actually, in a football match. You miss a penalty. The question now is, how does the player react to that? Does his performance diminish because he's playing on his brain all the time? Or does he take it, park it, and then move on? And I think for most entrepreneurs or most people who are risk takers, it's the ability to be able to take the risk. If you've made a mistake, you acknowledge the mistake, correct it. But very importantly, you move on very quickly. Because if you don't, having learned from it, because if you don't, I think that's where most people go wrong. They still dwell on the past and worry about the negatives and never think about the positives. And by the way, oh, you're back on. I just lost you temporarily then.
Can you hear me now? Hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Yeah, good. So I was just going to clarify, just to clarify. The key there, the understanding is that just basically move on. Now, it's a single thought in that moment. It's a transient thought. It goes from one side of your brain to the other side of the brain. And us as human beings, just for reference, because we have this, I know we have the same view on this one, that we have best part of nearly 1 billion thoughts every single day. So which ones do we empower? One of the ones will just turn up there and it just moves on if you don't give it an energy. So if you feel as though you're negatively held back, then you can just move it on, let it go, wait a bit of time, just stick it out, as they say, and it'll just move on. Now, that's such a lovely way of thinking about it. So the question that arises from this now is that based upon your current level of success, which we haven't touched on yet, after about halfway, we'll start talking a bit more about what you're up to today, if it's possible. But based on your current level of success and understanding, if I was to ask you a simple question of what one thing or what thing would you change? What would you do differently today if you were starting up in the same way as you did in the 80s? You did disrupt the system, and most people don't know that there's tracks like Ninder Buddy, which is PMC, was produced by Natural Records. It cut the marketplace, completely brought Bhangra industry to the world, and I think it's probably singly one of the most successful Bhangra artist tracks on the planet. So my question to yourself is, what would you do differently now that you've learned with all of those amazing successes? And we haven't even touched your academic successes yet.
I think one of the things I would do now, which maybe wasn't around, I wish it was getting a mentor. I think for those early decades, I was just by myself, and my wife Ninder, we just worked together, but didn't really have someone or a group. Remember that peer I talked about of people better than you, and then you learn from them. So my advice to anybody now is seek those people, find those people, see where they hang out, and if they're very successful, take my word for it, it'll rub off on you, because you'll aspire to reach the same level. If on the other hand you surround yourself by, and I'm going to be careful with my words here, losers, people who moan all the time, complain all the time, blame the world all the time, everything's out of their control, it's always someone else's fault, then unfortunately, as hard as you work, it will affect your viewpoint of life. So I think two things I didn't do, which I should have done: surround myself with better people, and secondly, I should have sought out somebody who could have mentored me or guided me through those early years. Those are two things I didn't do.
That's just so powerful. I mean, Sam, I know definitely you agree with exactly that about getting a mentor early in life, making sure that it's a part of your journey. I mean, have you got any views on that?
Oh, absolutely. I think mentor or a coach for a business or personal life is very, very important. I think the trend has come from USA and is now quite ignite in the UK or European Union. And people who have a mentor or a coach are increasing their ability to succeed in personal life and business tenfold than people who does not have one. And as Ninder has plainly mentioned about resilience, talking about taking risk, making sure that these are the one, and connecting yourself with right-minded people is also key to your success, and for your company's success is completely in your hand, and it allows you to go forward with it. But that is quite an important decision one has to make for themselves. So let me now take this to the next question. Ninder, regards to your journey, in regards to your awards, please tell us about what makes you start this award ceremonies, and how this is creating a vibration in the industry?
Okay, so now let me also, when we spoke about how, for personal development, how you can become a
Ji.
good person, too often what we forget to do is we're so embroiled in our day-to-day, we don't think of people outside of what they do. So I remember when I was 10 years old, my father worked in the foundries, and health and safety wasn't great, so he became blind. But I remember through that journey, 4 or 5 years, or certainly 3 or 4 years, he was continuing in the hospital. So I saw the value of the NHS.
Wow.
So then started to work out that actually I was very lucky that I had a free education. So I always then thought that when an opportunity came, I'd put something back whenever I got that opportunity. So that took me, and it was interesting. It was sort of linked to my music industry, because once we'd had chart success, and I'll come on to you. Once we'd had chart success, I knew I wouldn't get a top 5 UK hit all the time. It's just not going to happen. So that's when I thought, well, what skill set do I currently have, and could I employ and diversify? So as a tabla player with the John, we toured the world. So I understood lighting, I understood sound, I understood video production, I understood all those bits. And so I thought, well, actually, what I could do is I could do event production for corporates. So that's when I then moved into that sort of sector. But then when I started to work in that sector, I then thought, well, what else can I do to put something back in the community? And that's when I started to do work for the Chamber of Commerce, free of charge. But I became the president. I then became a governor at a local school. Then I became a board governor at Wolverhampton University. I became vice chair of Sandwell College. I became a chair of a charity called Steps to Work, which takes people unemployed into employment. I became a trustee of primary school, which went from failing school to outstanding Ofsted. I didn't do much, but I was part of the picture. The head teacher did all the work. And then I became a trustee at the West Bromwich Albion Trust, Foundation Trust, which look after disabled people. So I put a lot of hours into that. Now you say, well, why have you done that? One, it's a sense of putting something back. But interestingly, I met people I would have never met. So I learned from them. And when I sit on the Black Country Local Enterprise Partnership Board, which is the government's arm in making sure the local region, that's the Black Country bit that you spoke about earlier, Saki. I then suddenly found myself sitting with multi-millionaires, industrialists, and suddenly, guess what? I started to learn from them. And so what I suddenly found was, whilst I was doing things for the community, actually I was benefiting directly myself through my own personal development. I wasn't aware that would happen, but I became aware of it. So I would say to people, okay, you run your business, but what do you do for somebody else? Do you do anything? Do you put anything back in? Do you do anything? And they'll say, well, I haven't got time. I say, well, actually, you will benefit from that exercise, because interestingly, through that route, and you've got to be careful with the words here. The words are, people always said, you'll work well in business because of who you know. Actually, it's not that. It's who knows you. If people know you, your brand, personal brand, is at a level that people know you, I can tell you, your door will be breaking down with the opportunities knocking. You will have too many opportunities to look at simply because people know of you, not who you know. So I had a problem with my iPhone. I lost all my blinking contacts. Can you believe it?
I remember.
Yeah, so somebody said, oh my gosh, you're in trouble. You've lost all your contacts. What are you going to do? I said, well, with technology, I can find all those people very easily. I can find out who I know. The bit that I don't know is who knows me. And that's the bit, if you're going to get through in life, particularly in business, your reputation precedes you. And that will be determined by who knows you, what they know of you, and what they think of you. And more importantly, what they tell the person next to them. So I think when people say, well, I'm too busy to go and work for a charity, wrong. Because I think you'll benefit from it, the community will benefit from it. And interestingly, I didn't know that at the time, but your personal brand and your learning will accelerate because you'll learn about things outside of your comfort zone and you'll be placed in conversations outside your comfort zone. So I've sat on a number of quite high profile boards where sitting around the table, I'm not completely convinced by CEOs around that table because you know they are uncomfortable outside of their sector.
Yes.
They're very uncomfortable. And that means they're not as all-rounded individual as they think they are. And what they're really used to is their own little empire, their own little kingdom where they know best. But actually, once you take them out that means they've still got lots of self-development to do. So I would say to people, it's not what somebody can do for you, it's what you can do for them. And you know something, if you do things for people, they'll remember you for it. And you know something will happen in the future when they will come around and thank you for it. And by the way, they'll also remember you when you don't help them.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you're so powerfully said that because I believe that when you don't do something for somebody, when you could have, it's probably going to be stronger than you ever think. They'll actually remember that probably 7 times more than if you did something for them. They'll remember you in a time of pain, but if they're in a happy moment, they'll say, I remember Ninder, he didn't do this for me, or I remember Suki or Sam, he did this for me. But the moment you do something out of will, it actually gives you a chance to live. You know, it gives you a life source. It adds to your own generation within yourself. And as you said yourself, you know, out of mind, out of sight, out of mind, and out of mind, out of action. So if you're not in their sight or their thought process at the moment, the second they actually want your service or something similar, you might as well have not have been there. And the really key point that you shared there was the people that you don't know you. They're the ones that are going to be missing out of your system. And so it's so powerful. So we are constantly, as you suggested just a moment ago, Samuel says that we're constantly an open book. We're constantly a beacon of our own brand, our own understanding of who we are, what we stand for. And once upon a time, it was so easy to say our elders held a good, strong brand within themselves. But it's our go and our times are different. Is that right?
Yep. So I just missed you there for a second. Sorry, I heard you say mention elders.
Yeah. Amrik Bumrah, thank you very much for being online as well. He agrees 100% with Mr. Johal. So just reading out one of his little comments there. But I'm going to suggest that, thank you very much, Amrik, for that. But it's honesty. It's about being there for other people. What's your feeling on how does that, the gift of change, what you were just talking about there a moment ago, about helping somebody else, how does that translate into your reward system? Because you have made a formidable awards processing system, which is so professional, because I've had the good fortune of being a judge in one of your actual events last year, if you remember, and I was blown away by the professionalism and the honesty, the integrity that was delivered, where we weren't even connected with other judges, and how that translated into a real truth of people who are winning the awards. And then I think it was early last month, or start of this month, or late last month, we're also humbled to have won a commended award from your organization as well. So how does this helping other people in the world, how does that translate into your award systems? Because you do a formidable job and they're so professional.
Well, a couple of things. So I spent 2 decades promoting artists, if you think about it. So this is now promoting enterprise, entrepreneurs, and businesses. I'm firmly of the belief, certainly from my part of the region, that business isn't as applauded as it should be. I think risk takers aren't acknowledged as they should be. Mm-hmm. I think for any society to function, it needs a fully functioning economy, both a local economy, a regional economy, and a national economy. Entrepreneurs and wealth creators create jobs that make communities sustainable. They create opportunities for generations to come, and they give communities a sense of self-confidence. So if you take Chicago in America, the local economy collapsed. Unemployment went through the roof and it became a ghost town. And normally, what that normally then brings is a misfunctioning and malfunctioning society. So it really is important that those people, those risk takers, are acknowledged. So the awards nights that I put on have three elements. The first element is a learning element. So we have a keynote speaker, so you learn from their journey.
Yep.
Element with 550 people in the room, there's a connecting element, so you connect and learn. Remember, I talked about learning from people who are outside of your industry. So typically at our events, we have people from all kinds of sectors. You can learn and benchmark from other sectors, not your competitors, because you're all in the same industry. And the third element is one of celebration. So you have learning, connecting, and celebration, and it's celebrating those entrepreneurs, those wealth creators that have impact either in their local region or the national region, or perhaps even internationally.
Wow. I think we've got sound there.
Yes, I think we got a bit of a delayed in the feedback at the moment when Mr. Johal is finishing his discussion with us. But it's bring us to quite a point of the amount of your personal determination and your commitment to this award is quite mind-blowing, because the people who joined this place to come to, and I saw Suki's award, and he was so happy to receive that, and has been given this opportunity to be shown to the world that there are a lot of people who are doing their out of reach work as well in the society, and they should be awarded, and they should be given this opportunity to be connected with so many other people as well in the industry, and bring as a source of knowledge, as a source of wisdom together. Because I think working alone is one thing, but working together is biggest achievement for all of us to go forward in our life. Connecting to this your award, I would like to ask you, we all have to be remembered. So if people have to remember you, what will be your legacy?
Okay, right. Well, my first sort of dream was to see a Punjabi track in the charts. It took me 20 years to get there, but that was something I was told could never happen. I was told it was sung in a language that nobody understood, with instrumentation that nobody understood, and with a vocal that nobody understood, and with lyrics nobody understood. And they even said to me they don't understand the melody. So you can imagine trying to sell that to non-Asians. So that was my dream. That was my dream. And that was the dream I then embarked on. And fortunately for me, I did achieve that dream, because Mundiya Tabachke went number 5 in the UK charts. And with Jay-Z featuring on it, it went number 7 in the US charts. It went number 1 in Italy. It went number 2 in Germany. It went number 1 in 9 other territories. It was on films in Hollywood. It was on films in Bollywood.
Yes.
The Japanese went at number 1 with its ringtones. So I was part of a journey that took Bhangra music, Punjabi music, into areas that even Heineken couldn't reach. So that was something that I saw. It was something I was told was impossible to do. And what I hope to see in my lifetime is that happening again. And I look forward to seeing another Punjabi track go into top 5 of the mainstream charts. And the only region we never sold to in the end, we sold to every territory in the world. Remember, a Bhangra track, a UK Bhangra track. The only country we never sold to was China. So I'm not surprised that Americans have fallen out with the Chinese over copyright, but that's another issue. But that was, I suppose, I know I did it, 10, 15 years ago, but that was the legacy I sought to do. And I suppose one day I'll be remembered as the chap who took music that I was told could never be sold into mainstream charts.
Well, to add to that, if I may say, Ninder Buddy, for me, 100%. Because if you remember, I was involved, as the Wahiwala family was, way back within the audio industry. And so we were into promotions and we were helping bands and stuff of that nature. And it was genuine. You reinvented the whole Achanak brand and the whole, as a band, that was for a band, you reinvented what a band should look like and could look like. And then it was an inspiration for the next generation, individuals like Saki, et cetera, Anaki, and all them who actually wanted to turn around and follow suit. But then also by reproducing their music and then taking it to standard that was basically, it may have even been above what we were expecting in the normal British charts at the time. I'm talking about the video quality. It was something different, something really nice. So I will humbly say that 100%. It is connected, without a doubt, to your amazing legacy that you will be with us. And there'll be more to come yet, so it's not over yet, I'm afraid. We've got plenty more to get out of you as well. We've got a lovely question by Amrik Babra, and if I can just repeat that for yourself. And his question was, is working together one of our issues as well? Because when we were just talking about a question, Samuel's question about human technology and human connection, he's saying, is working together one of our issues? What are your thoughts? So I assume, Amrik, you mean something along the lines of, if we work together as a human team or whether we work separately, which is, I assume a version of both. Does that make sense? So if you work as a team, what are the pros and the merits, and what are the demerits? And if you work in solo, what are the merits and demerits? I think that's the question. We've got about 15 minutes, or I've talked about 13 minutes left. So just keep it about 5 minutes. I'll be fine if it's okay, Ninder.
Okay, I think a couple of things. As human beings, we're programmed to socialize, and we're programmed to get on with each other. But obviously, as human beings, and all the human theorists will tell you, we're born to compete. And certainly if you're in business, competition is part of your DNA. Yes. So getting people to understand, and we talk about emotional intelligence, getting people to understand what other people are thinking and to think on a much wider level is very difficult for people. So when I joined the local enterprise partnership board, as I walk through the door into the boardroom, I leave behind me what my interests are. I leave behind me how my company will benefit. I leave behind me how my business will benefit. Because when I walk in that room, I think of the region, I think of the stakeholders, I think of the people who live in the area, the people who play in the area, and the people who work in the area. Actually, my interest becomes subservient to the bigger picture. And I think if we can get enough people, and I firmly believe those others in the room, the industrialists in the room, are of the same thinking. So I think if we can surround ourselves with people who put other interests first, then collaboration becomes easy. So I think it's back to what I said, if it's who you sit with, who you learn from, and who you work with. And your environment will determine your mindset. And that's why it's important that you do sit and mix with the right people and learn from the right people. And if they're the collaborative type, I'm telling you, you will become collaborative. If they tell you that crime is the best way of making money, then you will enter crime. So your environment is very important, and people you learn, sit and work with, and people you talk to on a daily basis will determine part your viewpoint of life.
Love it. So in context of that, it's so beautifully said that my father, Ninder Singh Wahiwala, who's actually one of my first mentors with my mum as well, he specifically says that my grandfather and my great-grandfather, with 7 generations in business, as you know, he shared this message to everybody. He said, sit with people who are doing the same as you, doing things different to you, and also things that you don't agree with as well. He said, but don't sit with them to learn from them and take their pros on from that context. See them with a filter that's going to serve you. So if you sit with a gambler, learn from that gambler and see that person going in. His version was very simple, going into the casino or whatever it is to put the bet on, and then see him when he's won, but see him when he's lost as well, and then learn from that and say, what is this? How does this apply to myself? And that's principally what you've just shared there as well, is that sit with people to grow yourself with an understanding. We all understand the clarity in your mind, because if the clarity in your mind is not correct, if we don't know what we're looking for, Seneca says, when a man does not know which harbor he is making for, no wind is the right wind. That's the reality. Correct. But the second you get clear on which harbor you're making for. Thank you, Sam. The second you get clear which harbor you're making for, it's any wind gets you where you want to be, because you're going to adjust your sails. And that's wonderful. So a little thought to yourself, and this brings me into the context of this episode is usually promoted in some way and kind of sponsored by the Inspired Dinner Club. So if anybody who's listening does want to connect with people at Ninder in person and all the other coveted speakers we've had, and also be connected with individuals who are thinking differently, but not necessarily just for business, because it's not about just nailing yourself with people who are into business. It's about the emotional content of oneself as well. It's about how we grow in our personal life and personal development. There's a program, an event, which is going to happen this evening, actually. It happens usually every evening after the Inspired Business TV show. We have an Inspired Dinner Club, which happens in the evening in London. Ninder will be speaking, if I remember, in February time, 2019 with us. So having the time, we'll promote that closer to time as well. But tonight we have another speaker who talks about health. Now, the principal understanding is, thank you very much for putting that link up there. Much appreciated, Sam. So that's this evening, and it starts in Covent Garden. And if you follow the link that Sam just put up on there as well, if you follow the link, click in and book for tonight. The bookings are still available. Turn up. It's a not-for-profit environment. Everyone just pays a very nominal fee of just covering the meal, which is £30. But after dinner, we end up with about 30, 40 people there. And after dinner, we end up with a lovely afternoon keynote speaker, just talking about their journey, about how they've overcome challenges in their life and how they can give some of that nugget forward with everybody else. So it's all about inspiring individuals as opposed to here's another networking environment for another business card to be handed over. So going back to that context of Ninder knows this very clearly, and I've shared this many a time, and Sam and myself absolutely stand by this. We say that when you're in a social environment, when you truly trust somebody, is when you'll do business with them. I've done my largest business deals in social environments as in business environments. So this leads us into another context just before we move on to the final point. And hi, Shakil, just coming on board, one of our resident promoters. He's an amazingly coveted trainer and a sharer out there. What I'd like to say is we are having, if anybody would like to touch base with myself or Sam or Ninder in future as well, we've got an event on the 27th, which is Saturday, the 27th of October in Birmingham. And I believe it's on Broad Street. Is that correct there, Sam? And it's called Emotional Intelligence. Yeah. So can you just give us some more insights on what we'll be covering very quickly for about a minute or so, and what the location is as well, please, Sam?
Sure, I will do that. That's perfectly fine. Thank you, Suki, for that reminding me as well. So on the 27th of October, from 10 to 2 p.m., we are having an event designated for professional and business owners. It's all about emotional intelligence in business. It's quite an area where people are aware of it, but not aware of it in detail. So I'm bringing in Suki Wayawala, one of our great speaker, but there are 3 other prominent speakers coming in to share their pure knowledge on that day. And that's where we are going to be bringing in their solid knowledge and be shared by Suki, Aslam Shawal, Making Sang, and Ben also, because they are the individuals who are going to be bringing some significant amount of knowledge they've been going through, and they're going to be sharing it. So if you are available on the 27th of October, please come along, and I'm going to put a link on the broadcast as well. It's going to be an amazing day, so I don't want anybody to miss it. Thank you, Suki.
Amazing. Thank you. So now, before we move on into the final, because we've got the last few minutes, and I think it's been really enjoyable. Thank you very much for everybody who's logged in. And we've got about 14, 15 people just logged off as well and logged in. Amrit, and what a beautiful question. Now, the focus I'm going to say is, firstly, I want to be very, very truly thankful, Ninder, that you've taken your time from your busy schedule of your day, and Sam, for yourself, to take your time out as well. The Inspired Tribe, the iTribe, we specifically go out of our way to ensure that this kind of knowledge is shared humbly, without any pitch and without any sale. As you can see, it's all about just connecting human beings and evolving the thought process, and in essence, being able to touch and communicate with people who are achieved individuals like yourself, Ninder. So, you know, you've created such an amazing following over the world and through the groups, and just by simply achieving and being focused. One of the key questions, one final question I want to ask you, we've only got about a couple of 3 minutes left on this, but if somebody was starting their business today Now, we touched it when in your first section as well, and we've covered by the awards and keeping that. How do they keep? Because as of the years that I've known yourself, Ninder, there's an air of a relentlessness about you, which is basically once my mind has been made, nothing's going to change it. I am going to deliver it. So, what techniques and what have you done in your journey to dig deep, Ninder, to be able to deliver when what we call the cards are not facing your way, when the lights are switched off, when things are not going your way? How do you get past those sort of moments, if it's possible?
I think there's a saying that you learn more from your failures than from your successes. And I recall I had this one calamitous day when 3 distributors, this is the record business, 3 distributors went bust on the same day. So one was in Malaysia, he owed me a shed load of money. One in Brick Lane in London went bust. I think 2 went bust. And I remember suddenly my cash flow just went out the window. And I got a call from my local bank manager who said, by the way, I'm going to bounce every check of yours, so you better sort your cash flow out. Those are dark moments. And I remember I was thinking, and here's the mistake I made, and this is the mistake I want to tell people never to make again. So I'm thinking what to do, and then we come to the evening. I still haven't worked out what we're trying to do. So my wife says, "These were days of Blockbuster. Do you remember videos?" So my wife said, she said, "Go and get your son a Blockbuster video, for the evening." So this is about 9:45. So I went to the cash machine, put my card in, and it swallowed my card, and the message said, "You have no funds." So that night, I did not have, Saki, a pound to my name because the videos were a pound. Yes, so I drove down to Blockbuster. Thank God, Blockbuster was shut early. So I was able to go home and say, sorry, Blockbuster was shut. But the alternative was for me to admit, which I hadn't done, that actually we had no money. And I think my advice to anybody is make sure those who are close to you, may or may not be involved in the business, understand what's going on. Because they're your support machine. They're the people who are going to see you through the dark moments, and do not keep them in the dark. So that was my first mistake, which I then corrected. But fortunately, my second learning was because I had a degree and had an MBA, I was able to very quickly put a recovery plan together on paper for the bank manager. And thirdly, have clarity and vision in your thinking. So when I sat in front of the bank manager and asked him to triple my overdraft because these 3 people had gone bust, and he wasn't interested in my assets. He knew he had my house, he had my house keys. He wasn't interested in that. He was interested in my recovery plan. And because I was able to put a cogent recovery plan because of my education, so don't dismiss your education, able to secure the trading, the overdraft, which I was then able to trade through. So I think those dark moments, those low moments, bring you down, and you need to find something underneath, inside, that brings you out and says, well, actually, it may look dim, it may look dark, but actually there is a positive. So I'll give you another example. In my office, I have 2 cupboards. I have a cupboard full of failed albums that collapsed. Yes. I look at them, I smile, I remember the mistakes, but then I look at the plaques behind me of all the platinum selling CDs, and I smile. My day carries on.
So what I've just understood there for all of our team and all of our iTribers was we're sadly coming to the end of our interview with the amazing Ninder Johal. So what we understood is have somebody who you can share with. So step 1 is to have somebody there who you can actually share with. Step 2 is to share with them openly, and then obviously always look for a plan together. So have people bouncing with you as well. And then is there something else like what we classify as a final state or a mindset break where you can actually move forward and say, okay, these are the things that challenged me, but guess what? I also have these awards or these achievements, which I did as well. So flipping it. That's principally what Ninder's saying. Ninder, I'm not joking. It has been an absolute pleasure. And on behalf of both Sam and myself, if you've got a few words, Sam, you're welcome to share. Yes, this has been genius, as always. I think everybody who's been connecting with ourselves over here has just really thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll be sharing this if anybody wants to reconnect with us on www.inspired-business.tv. And that'll take you all the bits and all the videos that we have there, all the promotion. And what I'd love to do is, if you can please put the link up there, Sam, is for everybody to just join us on our Facebook group, which is the Inspired Business Club. And it's on Facebook. Please join us. We share a lot of knowledge, and every one of these videos in the full entirety is exclusively shared on that particular group. It is not shared on Facebook, on YouTube, but on YouTube you'll find all of the small segment pieces of the video. So once again, please join us next month, which will be on the 3rd Wednesday. All you've got to remember, the 3rd Wednesday every single month. So November, the 3rd Wednesday, and that will be rescheduled to our normal time of 11 o'clock till 12 o'clock. Today, on behalf of Sam and myself, Sukhi Mahiwala, your hosts today for the Inspired Business TV, Ninder Johal, we would like to thank you humbly and wholeheartedly for all of the wisdom that you share every single time. You don't let us down. It's just been a pleasure.
It's amazingly. Thank you for both of you for taking this time out and joining live with us. Thank you very much, and have a fantastic day.
You too.
Thank you, Ninder. Bye. Take care. Bye, iTribers.
Bye.